Welcome back to the lab, robots. This week I dug out some other video cards that I've had in other servers or in the lab. We have a Quadro P2000. For the next up, we've got a 1660. We'll pull the M40 out. We got to get these in so that we can start testing for the leaderboard, just so that you guys have something that's coming up. Let's see it done. Alright, now we got it all installed. We've got, look, monstrous M40 up here. We've got the Quadro P2000 5 gigs. Today we are going to go in and start our actual testing on the Mistral 7B leaderboard. You guys have heard me mention in the last few videos as we baseline tested a i9-9820X. That baseline that I talked about, remember I was going to build a leaderboard out of it? That's what we're looking at right here, and this is live. You can go to our site at RoboTF.ai, and off to the right-hand side, or excuse me, off to the left-hand side, you will find the Mistral 7B leaderboard. You can also see all the reports from all of these videos and interact with them on your own in case you can't see very well in some of these videos. But first off, we're going to go into what our goals are with this leaderboard and the rules of engagement around this leaderboard. To start off, our goals: to use an LLM model, in this case Mistral 7B 0.3, at different quantizations in order to benchmark GPU or CPU performance. It's going to give us an idea of how different hardware performs, so we have an idea where to spend our hard-earned money. Provide not only data and information, but also visual representation of the speed. How does it feel? We want you guys to see how each of these components feels. Also, we're going to provide some fun and pizza to our AI robots at the same time, of course. Now let's go into the quick rules of engagement over this leaderboard. We will use the same model, again in this case Mistral 7B, at different quantizations. We're going to use the same model configs, the same context size. In this case it is 8K across all these quants, the same 111 or 100 or so token prompt to get an average over 20 tests. We will not be testing GPUs under 5 gigs in VRAM size for Mistral 7B. A, I don't have any, and B, that's really cutting the memory down low, at least for Mistral 7B. We will, however, allow not offloading the KV to save VRAM on low VRAM cards, which means we will bundle in CPU and RAM to aid the model running. I think that this is going to be very rare, A, because I just don't have cards that small. But we'll see what we get access to on the channel as we build up this leaderboard. If the GPU does not have enough VRAM, even with not offloading the KV, it will not show on that quant leaderboard. So in the case if we're taking a video card, which we're going to start with today actually, just to walk you guys through how this is going to work, if it can't go past a certain quant, Q4, Q5, because it runs out of memory, it will not appear on the higher level quant leaderboards. Costs that are listed down here are from either when I purchased it or whoever donated the card purchased it. It might have been a really long time ago when these cards were purchased, but I'm just going to be honest with them, and as we go, it could be used market price too if I go and look, but I will show you guys that on screen when we're doing this. Now, the biggest and most important thing is we will be taking the average of the 20 tests as the ranking based on highest tokens per second, and that's evaluation tokens per second. We are not going to take the results from the quickest test. We want the average. That is why we run 20 tests and let it settle down so that we can get an idea of what the average tokens per second are. The power consumption, you'll see that over there. That will either be, if it's a CPU, I will write down its TDP. If it's a GPU and we are watching it through Grafana, we will actually look at the end of the test what the average watts were for running the model, and I will put that in this column so that you guys can also base your decisions off of that. The link to the model that we're using for all of these different quants is right there. You can find all of our tests off to the left-hand side in the Mistral 7B Leader Reports page. And of course, you guys can watch all of the tests here so that you have an idea that these results all match up and that you have a good idea of what these cards are performing. All of these tests will mainly, unless we're doing other CPU tests, will be ran on our GPU bench node. Just because that's my bench node that I use for testing. The other one I use for actually running things under normal circumstances. This is a i9-9820X. This is what we use to do the baseline CPU testing. It has a Supermicro C9X 299 PGF logic board that I got off of eBay for $151. As you guys saw listed in the leaderboard, at number one position is the CPU because we haven't tested anything else, and it cost me $179 when I bought it. It has 128 gigs of DDR4 3200 RAM in it. It has 228 gig SSDs that I had laying around as boot drives and a 1 terabyte NVMe to store all the models. That's the different PCI configurations that you can get out of this logic board. It can easily basically drive 4 GPUs at a minimum of 8x. It does have 2.5 gigabit networking along with 1 gigabit network. We only use the 2.5 gigabit side. And a 850 watt power supply. As you can see from the photo, it is in an open air case. It runs in Ubuntu 2304. It is a Kubernetes node. So some of the software that we're using to do this test, that's actually a little out of date. It's Kubernetes 130 right now. We use Grafana and Prometheus. That is also a little out of date. Local AI, I have to go fix this. We're at least 2.21 on our local AI. That is our software that runs the LLMs behind the scenes and exposes an open API-like API that all of my custom-built Streamlit LangChain Python testing app actually uses behind the scenes. All right, so now that we've covered the basics and we've covered that the leaderboard is now live and our rules of engagements and what our goals are, let's go ahead and talk about bringing in our very first contender, right? We did all of our baselines on the i9-98X. Today, we are going to bring in a Quadro P2000 from 2017. This is a Pascal card, and it's the smallest card that I have in my lab right now, which is 5 gigabytes in VRAM. It is GDDR5 memory, and it has a 160-bit bus width on it, 1024 cores, and that's about it. This is actually the transcoding card out of my Plex server, and that's why I have it around. But let's give it a shot and see how it does running Mistral 7B and how far we can get with it. The nice thing about these cards is that they're single slot. They have a built-in small fan, and I think it's like 75 watts here. Yeah, the TDP on this is 75 watts. So even if you're running it at max, that's 75 watts. So this is very low power and could fit in anything and give you at least a little bump. And let's see how it performs. So let's go ahead and we're going to start our benchmarks with the Q3 model, right? So let's go double check our Q3 model. We should be able to fully offload Q3, and we're fully offloading it to this card, but I will tell you right off the bat that's gonna push it to its limit. So let's go ahead and see what happens. Alright, so you can see I have it set at using nothing but the P2000 with 5 gigabytes of RAM. Off to the right hand side in Prometheus and Grafana, we are watching nothing but that P2000, so that you guys will get an idea on power consumption and how hard we're running this GPU and the memory that we're using out of it. Down over here, this is NVTop. The P2000 that we're looking at today is device number 1, so it is going to be in this graph, and you'll see it show up down here. We are going to flip over to our Q3 model. And just to remind everyone, that Q3 model It is about 3.83 gigabytes flat file. We're going to flip over to the Q3 model that we want to use. So we'll scroll down. There's the Q3KM. We're going to type in our test results as ML Quadro P2000. I can't type today. Now we're just using the Quadro P2000. We have our typical 100 static token prompt that basically asks the LLM to build a GitHub action that will then build out a Docker container and report on status, etc., etc. It's our typical one. It's basically just happens to be about 101 tokens. In total, this will be about 111 tokens with the Mistral model. We're going to do our typical 20 tests, and let's go ahead and kick this off. We should see it start to load up down here, and there it goes. Doesn't feel too bad. We can see it's using about, right at that limit. Almost 5 gigabytes, 4978. Remember, the Grafana Prometheus metrics lag behind a little bit, so that'll take a while to get caught up. This P2000 does seem to be doing pretty good. Cruising right along for a pretty low-end card from 2017, really. Great for sticking inside servers, though, because they're not double width, they're single width, and they don't take any power. So it's not like you need to specially configure power. All right, it's about 13.62 tokens on the first one. We know that that's going to fall down over time, but it's looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. What do you guys think? P2000, Mistral 7B. It looks like it's at least going to beat our baseline out and take our #1 spot for now. Definitely for now. We've got a lot more cards to go through. Okay, let's slip this into fast forward. We'll come back at the very end of this and look at what the results are. And then we'll move on to Q4 and maybe Q5. I don't think we'll get to Q6 on this card. All right, see you then. Alright, and the Q3 results finished up and fell to about 7.37 evaluation tokens per second at the very end. Let's go ahead and produce this report and take a look. I'll expand this out so you guys can see it much better. Find the report here real fast. And let's double check our raw data, make sure that there's no zeros. Everything looks pretty good. And the averages down here, I've always been taking these in all of our other videos. This is what we're going to use to drive the leaderboard. All right, so back up to our prompt evaluation time. Remember, this is time, so the lower the better. And just to show you guys as we looked, this card is about $100 to $125 right now on eBay. So it's a little bit cheaper than when I bought it a couple of years ago for a transcoding card, but there you go. So here we go. There's the evaluation time. Lower is better when it comes to time. There's the total time. Prompt tokens evaluated, which should be 111 across the board. The completion tokens, remember this mimics the length of your response. Total tokens are going to be the last two put together. And the prompt token per second, just under 120. And we'll go hop over and take a look at the evaluation tokens per second. Now remember, this is fully offloaded, Q3 fully offloaded. And it fell to just, what we said, over 7 tokens per second. Not too shabby though, not too shabby for a Quadro P2000 from 2017. All right, now let's talk about actually moving over to Q4 and get that set up. Q4, I can tell you, will not run if we try to offload the KV also, just due to the VRAM requirement. So we are going to make sure that we are setting the KV offloading, or the no KV offloading, to true. What that does is that disables offloading that to the GPU. We are still going to offload all the weights. So you can see the GPU layers is still set to 33. We are just going to not offload the KV. Let's go ahead and save this, copy it over to the pod just so that we make sure we have it over there. And then we're going to cycle the pod, clear out all the logs, and make sure we're ready for the Q4 test as a fresh test. Let it restart here real quick. There we go. Let's go get the right model, which is going to be the Q4KM. You can see that we've got nothing but the P2000. Let's go ahead and get our report name in, change that over to a Q4. We need to do our standard 20 tests. Let's shrink this guy back so that you guys can see. And let's go ahead and get this all started. Should load up fairly fast. Now remember, we're not offloading, so we will still see CPU and host memory usage here, which gives you a good idea of the size of the KV that's in use. Looks to be moving pretty quick to me. This might even be faster than the Q3 model. That was fully offloaded, just to remind you. Let's see what the first one comes back with, and then we'll hop right into fast forward mode. Come back at the end, let you guys see the last test so you can see how it feels once it settles out. And then we'll move on to looking at the results and seeing maybe if we can get Q5 in. All right, and there is the Q4 test. It looks like it finished off at about just over 11 tokens per second, 11.17. And let's go grab the power wattage from that. Take a look at the last 15 minutes. The average says about 51, which seems about right. It would use less wattage, considering the KV was not offloaded to the GPU and there was more CPU and memory going on involved there. Let's go ahead and produce our report and go take a look. I'm going to copy this name real quick. Make sure we got some good results there. Drag this back open for you guys. All right, let's go take a look at the report. Double check all the raw data. Make sure there's no zeros. All right, looks pretty good. Prompt evaluation time. What's interesting is with the KV offload or no KV offload, it starts pretty low and then climbs up over time. Interesting. Evaluation time. Total time taken. Prompt tokens evaluated, it's 111 across the board. Completion tokens. Total tokens. Prompt tokens per second. And then the evaluation tokens per second. Fell to just over 11 on a Q4, so technically it performs better than the fully offloaded Q3 quantization on Q4 with keeping the KV and RAM and CPU. That is a little bit interesting. I don't think I've seen that before, but low VRAM card, single width, interesting. Okay, let's go ahead and move on and see if we can do the Q5 and if that will fit without KV being offloaded. So there's the Q5, AK, no KV offloading. Okay, let's just make sure, copy it over. Go back to our LLM testing. We'll drag this back up. Cycle our pod for fresh results. Wait for it to come back up. And there we go, nothing but the P2000. All right, let's get our model selected. Q5KM. Paste in our results. Name, say Q5. And let's see if this will load. If it crashes out, we'll see it start to load and then just die, and the test will die. Put in 20 tests, and here we go. Oh yeah, that's pushing the limit. I don't think we'll be able to fit Q6 at all. But that's okay. We'll get all these results, Q3, Q4, and see where it lines up on the leaderboards once we're done. This is Q5 on a P2000. KV is not offloaded. You can see it's running on some CPU in the host memory down here too, along with the GPU. First one back at about 14 tokens per second. Yeah, how does that feel? All right, well, let's go ahead and kick this into fast forward, let the metrics on the right go ahead and catch up, and we'll come back at the end of Q5. I don't think we're going to be able to fit Quant 6 at all on there, but we'll take the results we have and add them to the leaderboard. See you guys then. Okay, and there is the Q5 test done, and it looks like it came down to about 10.3 tokens per second at the very end of the test there. Let's go ahead and produce this report, and we'll go take a look. Make sure all of our data looks good. Q5. Show the raw data. Yep, no zeros. Prompt evaluation time. And there's the evaluation time. Total time, 111 tokens for the prompt. The completion tokens, total tokens, the prompt tokens per second fell to just below 50. Evaluation tokens per second, and there you can see that it came down to around 10.5 or so. All right, let's take all of these together because we know we're not going to be able to fit the Q6 at all. There's the Q4, there's the Q5, just need the Q3. And I probably missed it. Q3. Now we're going to combine these into an ML P2000 and just call it that because this is Mistral Leaderboard for the P2000. Hit combine files. And let's go take a look at that combined, and then we'll go add all the averages to the leaderboard and see where they fall out. All right, let's go select it. There it is. Now we have the Quant 3 in green, the Quant 4 in blue, and the Quant 5 in orange. And you remember Quant 3 was fully offloaded, whereas the other two, the KV, was still running on CPU and RAM. Let's take a look at the evaluation times. Total time token. Prompt tokens evaluated across the board is 111. The completion tokens pretty tight in between the Q3, Q4, and Q5 quants. Total tokens, prompt tokens per second. Now remember, these two were not offloaded in the KV, so this has got CPU and memory on it. So the prompt tokens per second is a bit more by the Q3 that was offloaded fully. Now the evaluation tokens. This is where this actually gets pretty interesting. The Q3, which was fully offloaded to that P2000, came in at under 8 tokens per second, about 7.5. Q5 in orange actually came in at about 11 tokens per second. And then the blue about 11.5, which is the Q4. So these two, the KV was running on CPU and RAM, and it happened to make it faster than the Q3 model completely offloaded to the P2000. Tell me what you guys think about that one. All right, now let me go add all of this information to the actual public leaderboard, and we'll go see where this ends up. Give me just a second. All right, now let's go take a look at the public leaderboard. Refresh this page, make sure we get the right data, and show you guys how to work it. So we can select the quant right here that we want to look at. We didn't get anywhere near FP16 today, so let's go ahead and take a look at the Q3. Ooh, interesting, huh? So our baseline, the CPU Core i9 9820, is actually slightly beating out the Q3 model on the P2000. So our baseline Core i9 9820 is still in first place. Let's go take a look at Q4. Ooh, and we can see in the Q4, the P2000 took over. The asterisk notes that we did not offload the KV. So with that, with the help of the CPU and RAM, it actually took second place, averaging about 11.34 tokens per second. Let's go see if that follows on the Q5 leaderboard. And it does. The Quadro P2000 is in first place, taking the gold medal for right now. We know that's not going to last very long at all. At 8.94 evaluation tokens per second versus the 7.59. Now you guys can come take a look at these all you want. I will add the reports over there so that you can actually go look at the reports of this test. If you guys enjoy this, go ahead and hit the thumbs up down there for me. And if you're not subscribed, it would be wonderful if you subscribed and stuck around. There is a lot more of these to come. Plus, we are going to still be doing other LLM testing. This is just a side thing to get this leaderboard going so that we all have some examples to look at. With that, I could use some pizza. AI could use some pizza. We'll see you guys next time.